Well, hey guys, welcome back to Tiffany Tells Testimonies podcast, episode 4. We just moving and grooving through season 2. I'm so excited to be here. I don't know when y'all will see this, but today is Resurrection Sunday. I don't know, what you're doing, but because he lives, I can face tomorrow. Mm-mm-mm. Because he lives. What? All fear is gone. You know why? Because I know, who holds my future. And life is what? And life is, you know,
Mm.
just because he lives.
Wow.
Because he lives. You know what I'm saying? Now, one thing about me, two things for sure. I'm going to forget the words and I'm going to give you a nice little instrumental. So don't you worry. But today is Resurrection Sunday. On a serious note, shout out to Jesus, the Messiah, the only one, the reason why we're here. If it wasn't for him, we wouldn't be here. So love him down, love him real down. Truly, truly my favorite. But guys, I'm excited about today. Today we have someone here who is not a guest anymore. He's pretty much just who he is. My man, my man, my man.
Wow.
RJ Napier in the
We in
building
here.
again.
Okay, we in
I
here.
brought you back.
I'm back.
What's that
I
mean?
mean, I don't know. What's that be?
I love you long time.
Man, that's crazy. That's just wow. You went from because he lives. It's just,
It all intertwines.
it came together.
It goes together.
The Lord did
Just
it.
like you were one person, I was one person, then we
Right.
became one.
One flesh.
One.
Wow.
One. Da da bella. That's a little insider. Anyway,
That's pretty
guys,
funny.
y'all need to focus. Focus in.
Yep.
Guys, we are talking about a topic that is near and dear to my heart. If you know me, I brought it up many times. I'm an advocate for it. Also, full disclaimer, God is the source, meaning he is the head, he's the main thing.
Yep.
But he gives us resources in order to help us through this life. And one of the main resources that I truly believe in that is helpful is therapy.
Absolutely.
Okay? So we're talking about therapy and Jesus today.
Wow.
Who knew?
Mm.
They could go together. I know they'd be
Okay.
like, you can't have one without the other.
That's what he said in Love and Marriage.
Love and marriage.
That was a bop, low key.
Love and marriage. Guess what? Therapy and Jesus can go together. A lot of people, I'm not going to go on a tangent just yet. Let me hold back. Hold me back. Let me hold back because a lot of people think they're separate and that they don't connect with each other, but they really do.
Yeah.
If you really want to do inner healing, you need both, okay?
Yeah, for sure.
I call it root work. Don't try to take that word. It's gonna come in some type of form to something. But I truly believe in the root work, and that comes with being able to go to the root and deal with it. So we're gonna talk about that because both of us have been doing, still doing. Hear that? We ain't made it yet.
Look at that.
We ain't there yet.
We ain't there.
We're still doing the work. But I'm excited to jump in with this conversation and just give some true life experiences because one thing we do believe in as a couple is that we're not going to talk about nothing we ain't lived yet or that we haven't experienced.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that matters to us the most is mental health.
Absolutely.
And it's important to know that that's important. Okay?
Yeah.
So, Mr. R. Jizzle.
Okay. it's getting real.
Mr. R. Jizzle.
It's getting real in here.
How about you tell us a little bit about, your thoughts prior to going to therapy? Because I know the story. They don't know the story about how you felt about therapy before you went to it. Tell us a little bit about it. What you think?
Yeah, I mean, early on, I believe my perspective on therapy was, and probably now it's changed a bit in the sense of like community-wise. I think my mindset kind of fit what I feel like a lot of people, especially in the black context, thought about therapy. It's like, I don't really need therapy. Like, people who go therapy, it's like, what do y'all get out of that? I'm not about to sit down and talk to a complete stranger about my problems so they can judge me for an hour or whatever the situation is. yeah, I had a heavy resistance to therapy. I just didn't believe it really worked. But more importantly, on that end for me, like as a black man, I felt like going to therapy at that point in time in my life meant there was a sign of like weakness.
Mm.
Being in a position where I felt like I needed therapy, that's like admitting that something needs to be worked on.
Mm.
And so for me, it was like, well, I ain't got none of that. So what
Mm-hmm.
am I going to therapy for? Meanwhile, I was getting smacked up by trauma. It's like, so
Yeah.
yeah, I think my perspective back then was just very much so like I didn't believe that therapy was going to be a avenue that would help me.
Yeah.
And yeah, like admitting that there's a problem
Mm-hmm.
felt like weakness.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was kind of in a nutshell my thought process.
Yeah, that is so true because I've heard that say people say that a lot. It's like
Yes.
admitting weakness and also believing that you crazy.
Yeah.
It's like they
Yeah.
equated therapy with you crazy, and it's like why you got to go to straight crazy? It can't be like you got a problem, you got something going on. It's like no, you gotta go to therapy because you crazy. And
Yep.
so that was what I heard, and also I didn't really see it modeled around me. Like
Yeah.
people in my community who I was around, they didn't go to therapy. Um, um, a person that I used to be friends with is the person that kind of introduced me to therapy
Yeah.
and told me that it was a good idea. I definitely had this thought of like, I actually went to school to be a therapist. So I felt like I could give therapy, but I didn't need therapy.
Wow.
Help her today, Lord.
My God.
And he did.
Look at that.
Pride before the fall, okay? I felt like I could help people, but could nobody help me?
Yeah.
And so, literally, after my parents died in 2014, one of my friends at the time suggested, hey, I think you should go to therapy. I think it could help you. And I was just like, you know what, at this point, I done tried everything. I done did a couple of different substances and tried some things. And so it's like, what would it hurt? You know, maybe I should go. And I did. I went to therapy. But my first experience with therapy was group therapy. And so it was for grief. It was people that were grieving. And I think to know me is to know me as a person that, like, when I'm around people who are telling their stories, for some reason I kind of diminish my story. And I'm like, their story is more like,
Yeah.
I haven't really been through nothing, even though I did. Like, I lost my parents
Yeah.
5 months apart. And so that was very traumatic. But for somebody that was sitting there in the group losing a child, that felt very like, you know, more serious. But then I got out of that and just realized like, no, my grief is valid as well. And it was nice to be in a collective environment of people to do that.
Yeah.
And so I think some people probably will be like, nah, I definitely ain't going to no group if I can
Okay,
barely go by
honestly.
myself. But I think God knew me. God knew what would take me. I'm a team player. So it's just
Yeah.
like, how about we ease you into therapy this way and then
Yeah.
maybe you can seek it out on your own.
Which that makes sense. I mean, you're a person that's very community oriented, so to
Yeah.
introduce therapy in a community setting is like very golden.
Very
For God- for
godlike.
God to do. Like, that's why I didn't even put that together till just now.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, so he slid me in through there. What would you say? How was your introduction to therapy? Like, how did you go, and what was the setup of that? How did that go?
Well, I was dating someone at the time named Tiffany, who was just like, yeah, like, you know, what do you think about therapy? And I remember my initial response was like, I don't think I'm gonna go to therapy. And I remember you saying to me, yeah, the person I'm gonna be with is definitely gonna be working on their mental health.
Yeah.
And so, you know, it wasn't like a force or anything like that. You know, I'm being, you know, obviously I'm joking, but I think being able to first of all like see it modeled in a place that I had not really seen it modeled before, because I didn't really grow up with anybody around me in therapy in any type of capacity. So to know that there was somebody that I was close to, you know, that was in therapy currently, you know, that did work in the past, and just being around more than one person who had really been doing that work, I think it intrigued me to see, okay, well, obviously there's something here.
Yeah.
And so the initial response, I think, to just like diving into therapy was a bit rough for me. It was very rough, and I don't want, you know, lie to the people, you know.
Don't lie.
But
Tell the truth.
the honest truth is it was a very hard thing to do.
Yeah.
And it wasn't something that was hard in the sense on the outside, but internally I battled with that, because it's like, man, going to therapy is like, this idea for me was, again, like the weakness or admitting a problem, and even the idea of facing something that I did not know was there. That didn't come up until really the first couple of sessions. It was like, okay, like this the first session was like, oh yeah, this is cool. I could do this. But then as time went on and we got to go to the deeper things, like that became very difficult
Yeah.
because now I'm being faced with things that I didn't even know were there.
Boom.
Things that were underneath that surface, i.e., that root
Yeah.
that was there. Before I had just been dealing with leaves and stalks, but being able to see like the roots of things, like you said earlier, it really exposed me to understanding how to deal with myself, like sit with myself, like have someone give me genuine advice, but also like practical tools to help me in times when I was triggered or when something was coming up, help me to understand what I was feeling. And so those initial, I would say probably 10, 15 sessions for me opened up a broad color palette, if you will,
Yeah.
of how I could paint the world for myself. Because I feel like I was really in a space where I was working very limitedly, but having that opportunity to be in therapy. And also another thing, I had a black therapist, like
Okay.
a black male therapist at that.
Yeah.
So that was something I didn't even know was a real thing. It was like, oh, it got to be a unicorn out here. But the
Right.
reality is it's not as rare as you think.
Yeah.
But even having that experience felt more comfortable for me to open up about certain things that I felt like were a part of my experience in this world, and having those particular things that line me up in this life. And so being able to talk about the black perspective with a
Yeah.
black therapist
Yes.
who's also male felt comfortable. Like I could really like open up about certain things that felt understood, and I didn't have to over explain myself
Yeah.
in certain areas. So I think that experience like shifted therapy for me. And I think if I had not have had an experience like that, I think I could have really had a rough time like continuing on. But I think God knew exactly what I needed.
Yeah.
And so even in that, like that understanding really painted a different picture of therapy for me.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't just the end of going to therapy. Now I'm seeing a therapist who looks like me.
Right.
So that means there's someone who obviously has done some type of work for themselves.
Yeah.
So if they're in therapy, what does that look like for me? Knowing that this is not something that's going to stifle me, but obviously it's going to take me to a place where I can be healthy enough to help people.
Yeah.
So I think that was kind of my initial experiences and being thrusted into
Yeah.
the world of therapy. So
Yeah, I remember that time, and you looked at me like, "Nah, I'm good.
I was
Like,
like,
we good." I'm like, "There's some trauma there. There's some trauma there, sir, and
something's
we
in
need
there.
we need to touch that." And
wow.
so, I mean,
Yeah.
I think you speak to a lot of things that I think people have like thoughts of. It's just like, will I find someone that looks like me
Yeah.
that I can relate to? Because I think people think that they're gonna be in a room and they're gonna be laid out on the couch, and somebody's gonna be like, "So, tell me the color," and somebody just scribbling. But it's not like that. It's formal. It's like a conversation. It's like we're having right now. And when you find the right therapist, because sometimes you might have to shop around.
That's good.
I had a couple different therapists that I had to touch and leave and be like, "Is this it?" and all this
Yeah.
stuff. My first experience with a therapist, I had a trauma informed therapist, and she introduced me to EMDR.
Yeah.
And so I got my handy dandy phone here
Look at that. Come on
to
now.
tell you what EMDR means. It's eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. Basically, what that means is it helps individuals heal from symptoms caused by disturbing life experiences, including PTSD, anxiety, depression, and phobias. And so I went, after I did the group therapy, it was only like 10 sessions. And then I was like, well, I probably need to do some more work. And so my first like real trauma it wasn't my first trauma, but it was the first present trauma was the trauma I had with my mom. And that trauma was based off of my last interaction with her. I don't think a lot of people know this, but I was the last person to see my mom before she passed. And our last communication was traumatic for me. She had some type of bacterial infection in her body, and so we had to wear suits in her room. And I remember my sister Bianca was in there, and I had came from the bathroom, and she looked at me and was like, "She's unresponsive." And I was just like, "What?" So I'm putting on my suit to come in, and Bianca kind of leaves and runs out frantically. My cousin Brittany was there as well. So I go to my mom, and I'm like, "Mom, like, hey, what's going on?" And she looks at me. She's kind of going in and out, and she looks at me, and she says, "Tiffany, help me." And then it goes, dee. And so that was my last interaction with my mom. And that haunted me. Like, I was
Yeah.
tormented by that for months. I would see it when I went to sleep. I would see it when I woke up. I would hear her voice. And as a person who I've explained even last season, I have like a savior mentality where it's like in that moment, I couldn't save my mom.
Yeah.
And so the last thing I hear is her say, save me, help me. And I couldn't. And so it haunted me. I was tormented. And so the therapist thought that the EMDR would be the best way to help me through that process. And it's a very like kind of different type of modality, but she had me hold these two beams, and what it does is it helps your left and right brain hemisphere
Hemispheres. Yeah.
hemisphere, and it kind of like reprograms your mind from negative emotions and negative experiences to something more kind of pretty much calm. And so it's a long process. But now I can say this story and not break down. Now I can say this story and not get froze or stuck. But it's for people who have dealt with trauma. And
Yeah.
so it helped me. It helped me a lot. Like I was definitely still, seeking God and all the things, but this was a practical thing that I needed to do because it just kept replaying. And I don't know how many people have moments in their mind or in their brains that they keep replaying that they can't do anything about it. Like it's just a negative emotion, a negative moment, and it's like I can look at that moment now, and it still hurts. It's still painful.
Yeah.
But I could think of like we had worked through times where I could say like she was like, well, what would you want to say to her in that moment? Like if you could, like what would you, and crying through that and snot and, it was intense,
Yeah.
but that's the work.
Yeah.
And that's the work that a lot of people don't want to do. They don't want to get to that moment because it's painful. It was excruciating. It was very painful.
Yeah.
But I'm grateful for that because in the sense it's like I can still honor my mom, and that's not the last thing I think of when I think of her, because that's all I could think of
Yeah, for sure.
for months was that last moment. And so that was my first introduction into my own individual. Of course, I had to go extreme. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, I
Gotta jump
can't
right
just
in
sit there
there.
and be like, oh, how's the weather? I'm like, no, EMDR. I'm like,
Make it so I can get electrocuted. Now look.
I'm getting shocked in my arms, like, yeah, because
Okay.
sweating and stuff. But it's like I had to go to I just, yeah,
Yeah.
like that's just my personality. I'm an extremist. But I have had extreme moments.
Mm-hmm.
And so that going through that recent trauma was an ability now for me to handle the other past traumas.
Oh, yeah.
Because you said something very, very, very key is that I didn't know what else was there till we addressed it in that moment.
That's good.
And
Yeah.
so I wonder why do you think people don't want to address those things? Why do you think people don't want to go into those moments of dealing with things that they have covered up?
Well, I think it's easier to live in the way that feels protected. So to go there means you have to kind of break down the barriers that you built up to keep that thing in. And so sometimes we do that naturally, and other times we do that subconsciously.
Yeah.
And so it requires us to have to actually face some things that were extremely painful.
Yeah.
I think even for me, myself, like the perspective of facing certain things that I didn't know were there, I think that statement for me rang true in a different way because there were things I knew were present, but I didn't know how loud they were. And so it wasn't until the soundproof wall comes down that you hear how loud that thing is really screaming. And so for me, it was seeing myself at 10, 11 years old experiencing a trauma at 30. It's like my 30-year-old self is dealing with the 10-year-old me that had not healed yet.
Yes.
And so that's what I mean. I think that people have a hard time having to come to grips with a chapter of their life that made them kind of compartmentalize it.
Yes.
And so it's harder to face something that you actually never saw, that you actually never really faced. And it's easier to believe, and this may sound harsh, but it's easier to believe a lie than it is to face a truth. And so the lie is
What'd you say?
essentially,
What'd you say?
It's easier to live with a lie than to face the truth. All right, that's the tea. That's the tea. It got to be chamomile because it's good for your
Woo!
throat. But yeah, I mean, genuinely, I think that element plays a big factor because if you really think about it, when we live with that lie, it helps us to be able to continue without actually having to address something that could possibly put us in a state that is harmful.
Yes.
And it's only harmful because we don't have the right tools.
Right.
But in reality, it's natural to feel sadness. It's natural to feel grief.
Yeah.
But because those emotions are so strong, it's easier for us to just box it up.
Yeah.
Put it somewhere where it can sit and not mess with it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that plays a big factor. What do you think? I mean, what do you
And
feel?
I think the lie is that people think they're going to be able to hide it and stuff it for a long time.
Yeah, it's
They think that it's not going to bleed out.
Yeah.
But I tell everybody this is that I feel like as adults, we're recovering from our childhood. We're literally trying to recover and heal from the things that happened to us that we had no control over.
Man.
And so in order to do that, you do need help.
Wow.
Because you need someone to be able to ask those questions, to find the connections and the places that it first started. And, you know,
Yeah.
I think people are comfortable being stuck.
For sure.
You know,
Yeah.
people are comfortable with saying, like, this is my past, this is what I went through, so this is who I am, versus this is my past, this is what I went through, but I don't want to do that anymore. I don't want to be that anymore. I would love to change the trajectory of my life based off of what I have now to know how to do.
So do you think that people who are in that position, do they know that they're stuck?
Yes and no. I think some people know that. I think some people are in cycles and they're like, I don't know how I
Okay.
keep. Why does this keep happening?
Yeah.
You know, that's
Yeah.
why
That's
does this
good.
keep happening to me? Why does this keep
good.
coming up? Why does this keep happening every year? And I think when they keep asking themselves that question, they will kind of start connecting that this is a cycle.
Yeah.
This is something that keeps coming up. It keeps happening. What am I missing? You know, when people say like God is always continually testing or having you
Yeah.
go through the same lesson, well, what is it? Is it a lesson or is he trying to pinpoint something that is unhealed? What is it? You know?
Yeah.
And so I think it's easier for some people to say, this is how I am, this is how I'm always gonna be,
Yep.
versus
Heard that one.
I can change. I wish just people would just I'm getting about to
He
get
got
excited.
passion. He's like,
I wish people would just say I don't want to change.
yeah.
Just say it. I don't want to change.
And I think even on another note of that, I don't want to change like that. I want it to change the way I envision it to be changed. Because sometimes it's the point. That's the point. You know, sometimes the change is not going to be what we envisioned it to be.
Yes.
Because sometimes we have to see that change is the way that we see the change initially is filtered through what we're going through
Yes.
versus the healthy element of what change really should be.
Right.
So, yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
People don't want to
I
change.
think people don't want to change. I think they don't want to do the work to change.
Yeah.
I think they think that it's easier just to stay the same and that everything will just work itself out. But truly, you reap what you sow. If you're not sowing nothing, you're going to reap the same harvest, and it's going to be dead and dry and no growth, no water, like nothing. And so our biggest investment is in ourselves.
Yeah.
I know we want to help other people and do all the things that we can, but if we're not okay, we're going to give out things that are not okay.
Yeah.
And it just don't work like that.
Bleed on people.
You just bleeding.
Yeah.
Just
Bleeding out. Like Spider-Man over
you know,
there.
there were so many things that were pointed out to me in therapy and that I didn't know that I really had root issues with. And one of them was like abandonment, rejection. To me now it's like duh. But at the time I was like, no, of course I don't deal with rejection. I love myself. And it was just
Yeah.
like, oh, you don't. You know, there was things that were being pointed out that it was like, nah, you really don't. No, you really don't. Because if you did love yourself, you wouldn't self-harm. You know, in the sense of like what I was putting in my body, what I was doing with my body. Like those are self-harm. Like a good therapist asks the right questions, which allows you to elaborate and explore the parts of yourself that maybe you've never thought about before.
That's good.
And so that's why it's like, you need help.
Yeah.
Y'all, we need help.
Come on.
We really can't see ourselves sometimes without somebody noticing or seeing us for ourselves, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I feel like being married to you was one of those perfect examples. It's like, I felt like I saw myself, I knew myself, but when you saw me, I was like, oh, close your eyes, sir. You know, it was like, no, you know,
For
but
real.
it was like your wanting to know me, it actually made me be me, truly,
Yeah.
who I really am, not versus what everybody desires me to be. Because I dealt with performance. I dealt with like the part of like wanting, I play sports. So
Yeah.
performance is in my blood. It's just like, let me perform,
It's
let me
there.
do good, la la la.
Yeah.
But it was like I was with you, and you're like pretty much, no, I don't care about what you do. I care about who you are. So who are you? It's like, thank God that I had done some work
Yeah.
because if I feel like if truly, like, I had my moment where I went to run,
Yeah,
but
I
truly, if I had not done the work that I did, I probably would have fumbled you
Mm-hmm.
because you truly were. Because the thing about being with somebody is they make you see yourself.
Yeah.
And so if you don't know yourself, you ain't dealt with yourself, yourself is going to be exposed to somebody and you might not like what they show and what they say they see.
Yeah.
So a big part of therapy, a lot of y'all like, I want my man. I want, oh, how about you know thyself first? Know thyself.
Wow.
You know?
Wow.
You got to know who you are first. What do you like? Who are you? Who are you without somebody? What does that look like? And so therapy helps that.
Yeah, it
Do you,
does.
do you think so? Or?
I 100% agree. Because, the element of something that happened for me when we first, got together is those moments when my walls started to come down and I was talking too much. And I was like, wait a minute. Like, ain't no way. I done told you my whole life story.
Yeah.
But I remember in those moments, like, the freedom of that, though. The freedom of being able to speak freely, about experiences that I've had, things like that. But thinking about that from the perspective of closeness, when you do have that element of therapy, though, it's like you have a very similar experience.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that I realized with a really good therapist. You can have a similar experience where things that should be hard in the sense of expressing and it coming out and thinking it's going to just fall apart, you actually leave relieved.
Yeah.
Yeah, it may be painful. Yeah, things are hurtful, but there is a sense of relief. Like, yeah, I did get this out of me, like talk this out. And it doesn't mean that that's the only moment I'm going to talk about it.
No.
Some things I've had to revisit like several times
Multiple
and
times.
probably still will.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that element like does make sense. It does bring a different factor when somebody can see you in relationships. Because I think too, like you have some people that don't know themselves because they've been with so many people that don't know themselves. And so it's almost like you become
Legion.
Yeah, I was just about to get to that. It's like you become carbon copies of fake things. There's not a real personality.
Yeah.
And so what ends up happening, people become infatuated with each other. Things become very superficial because everything has to be pressed and put in a very particular way. And that's dangerous.
Yeah.
It's dangerous because when one thing falls out of line, that whole person's world could fall apart because they don't know who they are.
Yeah.
And obviously, there's more than one element to knowing who you are, but this therapy is a very, very great modality to be able to find a way to be able to help yourself know what you need. Like
Know what you need.
It's important.
It helped to communicate.
Yeah.
It helped to say, like, be honest.
Yeah.
Like what you're saying, like you
Yeah.
you pretend. It's like you want to be a people pleaser, and so you cater your language, your body language to what other people want
Absolutely.
versus like what you really want. And then there's resentment.
Yeah.
That's why I can't stand you. All that stuff is because you weren't yourself. And so I think our heart is to normalize therapy, like to make it seem like it's a normal thing because it is normal.
It is.
My other piece to this is Jesus.
Yep.
Church.
It's important.
A lot of people.
Wow.
As I breathe heavily. They just want to do the whole let it go and let God. And it's like you let it go, but where is it at? Under the carpet. It's in the closet. It's under the chair. You didn't let it go.
Today.
You hid it.
Wow.
But you said that I gave it to God, but really you ain't dealt with it. And so I feel like people say that as a cop-out, honestly.
Yeah.
I let go and let God. But then the smallest thing could trigger you, and all of a sudden, where did it just comes out like, yeah. I'm like, I thought you let it go and let God. Look like it's on your shoulder.
Wow. Sitting up there.
Just
Chilling.
just taking you out.
Little parakeet.
And so I really want to hone in on the fact that we can have church, we can go to church, we can do all the things, but those sometimes are the beginning of the process that we continue need to have.
Yeah.
Jesus can meet us in therapy. It says he's the everlasting counselor or the great counselor. What is it? It's one of the names of God.
Wonderful counselor.
Wonderful counselor.
Yeah.
I just, God.
Yeah.
Wonderful counselor. So if he's the wonderful counselor, why wouldn't he give us people that are like-minded of him.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's just like,
Sure.
if he's the healer, like, why wouldn't he give us a doctor? You know, it's just all these practical
good.
things that people deny. Because they're like, I only want Jesus. I only want what Jesus. And it's like, we're like him. We're made of his image. And
Right.
so it's interesting to me that people would just think that they could just pray and scream and sweat and jump and shout
Yeah.
and think that they have been healed fully versus doing the work that put them on the ground to scream and shout and rope.
Yeah.
It's like, I am an advocate, believer of deliverance. We talked about deliverance before.
Absolutely.
But what I understand is that deliverance is the beginning. It is the start of something. It is the exposing of a spirit that has been connected to a behavior, and the spirit can be released and cast out.
Yeah.
But the behavior can still be there. So we need to handle the behavior. What is the behavior that the spirit attached to in order to torment me and cause me to stay in this path versus cast it out and get healing so that I can be in a better place with God? And so I think a lot of people think that it is just that simple, that I can just come to a Sunday service and scream and shout and shake and I'm good. But then next Sunday you come to Sunday service screaming and shouting and shaking for the same thing.
Yeah.
Sounds to me that there's a root issue.
Yeah.
There's something that you actually may need to address and tackle versus coming up here asking for prayer every Sunday. You know, that's just, what do you think?
I mean, I agree. I think that's crucial because, you know, we've talked about this many different times, and I think one of the first thing that comes to mind, like when you think about the elements of church or a service where that is happening. Now, there's many layers to this, but there are people, there is a genuine response to the Holy Spirit. There's a genuine response to the move of God that requires, in some way, there to be sometimes screaming, sometimes yelling, sometimes you may need to be on the floor. Maybe there's a reverence for his presence.
For sure.
But there is, unfortunately, a level of theatrics in the church where it becomes about optics.
Yeah.
Like, I got to look this way because I'm actually dealing with emotionalism versus actually dealing with the spirit moving. And that emotionalism is what causes people to feel like if I'm not doing this, then I'm not actually worshiping God.
Yeah.
And that becomes the problem because now you had an emotional moment, you feel the release of these endorphins, you go home, and now you're depressed.
Yeah.
And so you actually worse off than you were when you came because you didn't really get delivered.
Yeah.
You just had an emotional outburst. And so how is that any different than someone having a tantrum? You know, those moments are dangerous because it really can confuse people who are trying to understand a true move of God. Because God can deliver in a moment like that.
Sure.
But also, this is the thing that always has bothered me with this is, okay, we pray and we ask God for things. We ask him to help us with things, but do we actually wait for his response? Because you may be asking about deliverance and he may give you the piece that's needed to find the next piece later. But we don't listen.
No.
We feel a little bit better, i.e. we take a quick little shot of cough syrup, but the root is still there.
Yeah.
You still have the flu. So just because you have this thing that's helping with the symptoms doesn't mean that the sickness is gone. And so my problem with that is that we have a physician, but we don't allow him to actually heal us. And sometimes his healing comes through the hands of people, the mouth of people. Like he said, be his hands and feet. If he gave us that commission to be hands and feet, why do we be looking for ghosts? We look for stuff that ain't there.
My God.
We're looking for things that are not present.
Yeah.
Like God works through people.
Yeah, he does.
So why wouldn't he use a therapist? Like I don't, that honestly does not make sense to me.
Yeah.
You know, and it doesn't always just equate to that element, but it's the part for me that these things have to go hand in hand.
Yeah.
It's not one or the other. Like I don't want that to come off in any type of way. That it's either therapy or it's the Bible. You know, it's not that. It's that all of them are encompassing. God is not limited to a building.
Yeah.
Like God is not limited to a place that people name after something.
Right.
Like the church, first of all, ain't the building.
Right.
That's just the gathering space. We're the church. So if the body of Christ is the people, look for his people.
Look for his people.
God is in his own body.
Yeah.
So if I'm looking for Christ, I need to find those who are his hands and feet. And sometimes that means finding a therapist who is a believer.
Yes.
Because I literally had that experience.
Yeah.
And still currently I'm having that experience
Yes.
where I have someone who can give me these practical tools and also pray for me.
Yes.
So it's that part that goes hand in hand for somebody who really says they want to walk this life out with God. There needs to be balance.
Come on.
There's no balance.
Yeah.
So I mean, I don't want to
Yeah,
just
no,
I
you
want
in
to cut
there.
it there, but
Because,
I really
mean, it's real. Because some
Yeah.
people are heavy in the Bible and
Yeah.
heavy into scripture and heavy into knowledge.
Right.
But you don't have the humanistic part about being a human. Like when we actually go through experiences, like all you
Right.
have is a scripture to give me, which I appreciate that. I could
Yeah.
read the scripture. But what is the part about being present? What is the
Right.
part about naming the emotion? What is the part about naming the issue? You can't do that because
Yeah.
you haven't named your own.
that's good.
So it's like I don't care for people who speak in a lot of knowledge of therapy and all the things, but you ain't been.
Yeah, it's tough.
You haven't went. I mean I'm not trying to be funny, but it's like like it's cool. You can name the things, you can say the vocabulary, but have you actually experienced therapy? Have you done your work first?
yeah.
I'm here to say I've been in therapy for 10 plus years.
Yeah.
And I know some people say that as a place to be like, I know. Listen, I just let you know I still need therapy. I still need help.
Facts.
Like I have
That's
a
a
black
fact.
Christian
Yeah.
woman as my therapist who I love down. Dr. J, shout out to her.
Yeah,
She's dope. And having a Christian therapist helps because she speaks my language.
Yeah.
She understands that when I am wrestling with some things, some thoughts, she takes it back to my source. She's
Yeah.
just like, well, oh, I remember you said the Lord spoke this. And it's like, he
Yeah.
did speak that. Thank you for reminding me so that I can have that anchor and that understanding that he is with me, even though I'm in this pain.
That's good.
And so it's a nice little balance of having a Christian therapist because we have Jesus and then we have the practical application. She's like, did you breathe today? Did you go outside for a walk? She'll say things like, what did the Lord say? I'm like, I didn't ask God.
Come
I
on.
just wanted to be emotional.
Come on.
And she's like, you need to go ask God. That's what you do. I'm like, thank you for the reminder.
Okay.
Smack down. So it's like, I hear what you're saying about like having a certain person, a certain type of therapist could literally lead you even deeper in a relationship with Christ because the intimacy that I have with God is based off of knowing him and knowing myself.
Absolutely.
I cannot know God if I do not know myself.
Yep.
Like it's vice versa. As I know him, I know myself. As I know myself, I know him. Like we together.
So good. That's good.
You know what I mean? So it's like it's so important to do the work because there's people out here hurting and there's people out here that need language towards things.
Yeah.
But you haven't dealt with nothing. It's like you can't even pray for nobody else because you still on yourself.
That's good.
You can't even help nobody because you still trying to help yourself.
Yeah.
You could have been done, broke some cycles, been done, got out of some stuff, but because you're not willing to do the root work, to sit with yourself. And I think the number one lie that people think about pain is that they won't be able to get up from it.
Come on.
Like they won't be able to recover from it.
Come on.
But I sit here now.
Get in there.
I sit here now as a testament to a person that has been in pain, still in pain, living with pain, and that God can help you and allow you to still be present while you're in pain,
The irony of like today in this topic is I got an imagery of like the cross. Christ endured all that pain and suffering on the cross, right? That was trauma done to his body. Okay? He essentially gave up the ghost, which we could think of that as the moment where we fall into the hardest part of that journey.
Yeah.
But he rose, right? Now this is the part. Okay, 3 days he rose.
Yeah.
But this is the part right here. And I think there's an emphasis on the rising part, and it should be. Because without that, we have no reason to be Christians if there was no resurrection. But let's also remember that he rose with the same scars he died with. So that means that there was evidence of the trauma battles that he had to go through. So how is that any different than a believer who is going through a healing process? Because he was only dead for 3 days.
3 days.
So that means that in some of those wounds were not fully healed.
They were still.
Okay, so, and we know that the wounds were there because he had to show one of his disciples, look at the hole in my hand so that you can see that this is me. And the reason why I bring this up is because how would it be if we were able to be his hands and feet in that way? But we could
Show
show
it.
the scars
Woo!
of what we went through
Come on.
to show people you may be down for a little while,
Come on.
but eventually you're going to rise up again. And that's the part of being able to utilize both elements of what God did. God used his words, and he also used the miracles of things that were spiritual.
Yeah.
There were moments where God delivered somebody without the elements of the optics of the
Yeah.
miracle.
Yeah.
Some of the miracles were done through just speaking a word. And that's the same thing as therapy.
Yeah.
You know, those are moments where can we allow God to meet us in a place that we would not be comfortable being in?
Yes.
Can he do that?
Can he?
And can we see his hands and feet without it having to look a particular way to us?
Yeah.
Because some of us have to be like Thomas, where we got to see the hole in the hand, where we have to see somebody else's experience with trauma, where we have to see where somebody else has come from. And that's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
Some people need that.
Yeah.
And then you have others who are like Mary, who will be waiting for the person to come out. And so I feel like in the element of healing
Yeah.
and thinking about this process of balance with the spiritual and the natural elements of really, if you think about it, holistic healing, we have to see it from the perspective of how Christ also demonstrated.
Yeah.
Like, just because somebody is a Christian doesn't mean that they're going to be perfect.
Bingo.
Because there's this element that we believe that you're going to go through moments where you're getting beat, and when you come out on the other side, you ain't got not one scar on
Okay.
you. I'm leery of people with no scars. I'm leery of that.
Let me see your scar. They always say, let me see your fruit.
Okay.
Let me see your scar.
Let me see your scars.
Woo!
Let me see where you done healed from. Because if you still got open wounds, that's a clear sign something may be wrong. Because if you're trying to help me with open wounds, that means you haven't taken the work to tend to yourself.
Man.
So now you're going to bleed on me.
And I can get an infection.
And then also that, you got people walking around with open wounds for years. That thing is festering with disease.
Jesus.
And there's people who have the ability to have God use them,
Yeah.
and they won't use it because it doesn't look like what traditionally has been handed to them.
Yeah.
Because it ain't coming from the pulpit. It's like, well, it can't help me.
Yeah.
That's a problem.
Man.
That's a problem.
Woo! $65 more over here. My Lord, you over here preaching. I mean, that's so good. I mean, I let me see your scar.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think a real big reason why people don't want to go to therapy and don't want to deal with certain things is because of the shame.
Yeah.
It's because of the
sure.
shame. It's because of the shame of what transpired. But a lot of the traumas that we've dealt with are not our faults.
Yeah.
And I think first people just need to forgive themselves for the thought of thinking that it was their fault.
Man.
It's like once you can forgive yourself, you can understand that there's a process, there's a journey to go through. But if you can't forgive yourself or forgive others that have, and that again takes time.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm still, Lord help me. I'm still forgiving people and forgiving myself for mistakes I've made and things I've done. It's a process. And so why not be able to sit with someone to help you go through that process? And I think, another big thing with this is, money.
Man.
People, so let's talk about it.
Come on,
We
get
can
in
go
there.
fine and dine and wine.
My Lord.
A little Texas Roadhouse situation,
Okay,
but
listen.
we can't put no money to the side for therapy.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying? It's like it's too expensive.
My God.
But is your mental health expensive? Is it worth it?
Yeah.
Is your mental state worth it?
Yeah.
Is because that's a form of self-care. Is my mental going to be okay?
That's good.
This is a form of like I need to get myself together.
Yeah.
Just like you pay for a gym membership, just like you pay for groceries to eat.
Yeah.
It's the same with your mental. You need to take care of your mental as well. So could you put some money to the side to save for it? Or could you have a blessing of someone sponsor you in a situation like that?
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I just, and they have so many, I saw a little clip the other day. It was just like, I pay for $26 a session. There's different ways. So the excuses are excuses.
They really are.
You just don't want to.
Yeah.
You just don't want to. Again, just say I don't want to change.
Yeah.
I like being this way. I like being stuck. I like having the woe is me because this is how I get attention. I like this negative image of myself because people are drawn to what I've been through.
Yeah.
And so they pat me on the back, they rub me real down, but I'm miserable.
Yep.
I'm miserable. And it's like, God doesn't want that for you. Like,
No.
I hate to go into, it's like
Yeah,
an altar call, but it's like, man, like God doesn't want us to stay bound by the experiences that have happened to us that
Yeah.
we could not control. But we
Absolutely.
are adults now,
Hmm.
and we have the power.
Yeah.
There's so much access. We got so, I mean, there's YouTube, there's books.
Yeah.
I mean, there's health books, self-help
Hmm.
books galore everywhere.
Yeah.
There's so many things to help us, but we don't want to.
No.
We don't want to. We rather digress. We'd
Yeah.
rather just keep moving and thinking that we're going to do well. But
Right.
you going to run out. You're going to come to a halt again. It's going to come to a point where that cycle comes back up and it's in your face. And God's like, you want this, but you won't deal with that.
Yeah.
So God is a man of stewardship. He gives us things because he
Yeah.
believes we can steward them well.
Hmm.
You want a church, you want a pastor, you want to
Yeah.
do these things, but you haven't dealt with yourself. And so you
Yeah.
think I'm going to put you in a position to be around people so you can mishandle them? No.
Smack City.
No. No. And so,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that stewardship, it teaches many lessons. It teaches you obedience.
Yeah.
You know, obedience and understanding like sometimes things are not going to make sense to us at the moment that they're happening.
Yeah.
But later, there may be a moment where God allows it to be revealed. And, you know, interestingly enough, I think that is kind of the point of therapy too.
Yeah.
You know, there are things that may not make sense as to why has this been an issue for me?
Mhm.
Like, why am I dealing with that?
Yeah.
You know, but eventually things will start to click.
Yeah.
And God will speak more on something. You know, obviously the Bible gives us many, many different examples that we can look at that can be helpful. But I think there's the combination of the two that really changes the perspective for me. But I want to go to something that you said. I know I'm kind of going backwards a tad, but when you were talking about like forgiveness, what I thought about, and this is not to tell your story for you, which I know you've talked about your testimony, but that was something that I think impacted me quite heavily was you forgiving your offender. It's like, what process did it take you to go through to get to the place of even being okay to do that?
Yeah.
Like, what do you feel like, and I'm asking the question to you, like, do you feel like that moment, did you feel the balance of therapy and God, I guess is the best way to explain it? Or did you feel like there was more leading and healing in the aspect of what God was saying, or both?
The truth is, I had not gone to therapy yet.
All right, that's good. That's good.
I had actually not gone to therapy yet. I just
Yeah.
had a deep relationship with God at the time.
Yeah,
I was open, and I
Right.
was actually like going for him.
yeah,
And he knew that I was wanting to help my family,
Mhm.
but he knew that in order to help them, again,
Yeah.
God, the wonderful counselor, he's like,
Deal
you
with
want to
that.
help them, but you got unforgiveness in you.
Mm.
You need to deal with that. And it's just like, okay, yeah, I'll forgive my offender. Cool.
Mhm.
Forgive him. He's like, no, I want you to see him in person.
Mm,
All the things. And so I truly believe that God did that with me. That's
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I'm about to get passionate. But that's how I can talk about this because God deals with me daily.
All the time.
I'm gonna tell you,
the
I come from the back room. I'm like, well,
You got two locks on your head.
I'm
I'm like,
like,
Jesus.
you know, God got me again. It's
Yeah.
like I appreciate people that desire to call me out and say things like that. But I'm
Yeah.
telling you, God get me. He
Yeah.
get me real good. And so he was definitely one of those because I was open to it.
Yeah.
I was willing. That'd be the gateway for God to come in. It's like, are you willing for him
good.
to address that, to point that out, to say, hey, you want to help them, but you
Yeah.
got that. You got that speck. Not that speck, but you got that log.
Okay, it's
You
a
got
big
that
one.
tree trunk.
It's sitting up in
It's
there. Walk
You
around
like, let me
planking.
help them, and you knocking everybody over.
My God,
I mean,
today.
he's like, you got that first. I want you to deal with that first, and then you can help somebody. So
Right.
that was one of those situations where it was just my willingness to sit with God and open myself up to him to listen to what he had to present to me. So again, it's like God is the wonderful counselor. He is the source. So he can be our counselor, it's for sure.
Yeah.
You know, because some people are like, just take it to God, that's it. And I get that.
Yeah.
I understand that. That is a space.
Yeah, for
But
sure.
there's also deeper work that we need to do that God can do through
Yeah.
the help of someone else. That's someone that is a professional to
Yeah.
do that knows what to do, that knows how to sit, that knows how to ask the right questions. And so both are still good. Both still
Yeah.
work. But there's sometimes you just need to go deeper.
That's good.
Because I mean, I've gone to therapy sessions, and like you said, it's not over after you
No,
finish.
not
It's
at all.
like God opens another layer, and
Yeah.
those are the times I could take what I learned and go deeper with God. So it works out.
For sure.
Some my therapist addresses things. I go meet with God in my secret time, and I go deeper.
Yeah.
So then I meet with her again, and then we talk even more deeper about it. It's like
Yeah.
I'm getting it on both sides. It's like my
Yeah.
therapist like, God's like, then I'm just, I'm just getting,
Okay.
getting my sides beat
Over
up,
there.
but it's also growing me,
Yeah.
pruning me, making me better. So, yeah.
Yeah. No, I think that's really really good. It's one thing.
What?
I thought about what you said earlier. That I think was pretty profound. Which I mean, it's not everybody is super familiar with deliverance, and I think that's important to like highlight. Like everybody who is in the church doesn't believe in deliverance,
Right.
and they have different ideas of what deliverance looks like.
Yeah.
And so I think there's an element to that is important to acknowledge. But the part about for me, what are your views on this? Which I heard you already kind of talk about it.
Yeah.
But the aspect of like everything's a demon,
Oh my gosh.
right? Like for example, the part of what you just said earlier, you said that there are things that are happening that are 100% demonic, right?
Yes.
But the actions,
The behavior
that behavior that we
Yes.
choose to engage in,
opens the door.
it's like that opens the door for the demonic. So
Yes.
what would you say to people who don't believe in the behavior part not being the influence of the demon?
I would say that you really need to assess what it is. Because most of the demons come in through a portal, some type of gateway, some type of way that we have given access.
Yeah.
And I think about, there's extremes. There's extremes where there's been given access and we didn't ask for it. So I would say, again, like me being a child being raped,
Yeah.
like that wasn't a portal that I freely wanted to happen. But the behavior of someone else allowed a demon to come torment me based
Yeah.
off of what they did. And so he was a predator. The predator demon came into me. He had perversion. That perversion spirit came into me based off of what he did. It wasn't my fault.
Yeah.
And it wasn't things that I asked for, but those portals were open based off of his behavior. And so I truly believe, like, as I say, like the eye gate,
Yeah.
like what I'm watching. If I'm watching something that I know is perverse, that
Yeah.
talks about sex, that I'm seeing bodies come up against each other, and then I start acting out in that behavior, or my thoughts come, that's something that I allowed access to. I looked at that. I imagine that. I fantasize about that.
good.
And then here comes the demon like, what? You watching that? Ugh.
Yep. Attaches
It
itself.
attaches itself. And what does it do? It torments you. It puts you in positions where you desire that, where you want that you crave that, you
Yeah.
become obsessed with that. And those are things that you didn't ask for. You like, man, all I wanted to do was just watch a little porn. I just wanted to get a little off. And the next thing you know, you in extreme, you watching child porn, or you doing all kind of stuff. And so it's like, it just takes a little. And so those behaviors, I feel like that's what attaches those demonic, gives them demonic access. Everything is not a demon. So there's a lot of mental health things that happen that I don't think are demonic.
Yeah.
I think there are mental health issues. I think there are things that sometimes transpire and help through DNA, through family history, all those things. And I know we have generational curses and all that stuff. But there are some things that are not demonic and actually need help.
Yeah.
They need medicine. Some people be like, oh, no, I can't take it because I don't want to, it's like if
Man, that's so
the
crazy.
doctor prescribe it, take it.
Yeah.
Again, it's a resource. We still believe in the source. God can heal you. Thank God if he does. If he does heal you, praise the Lord. If he doesn't, take the medicine.
Yeah.
Continue to take the medicine till something happens. And so
Yeah.
I don't know if that answers your question, but it's just
It
like
does.
I want to say that the behaviors that we do, the things that we do can give access to a demonic spirit to attach itself to us. And then also people can send things, people
for
can
sure.
speak curses, people can do all those things. But when you're covered by the blood, when you speak God's promises over yourself, you can combat those things. And so we are not the tail.
Yeah.
We are not without help. We're not the victims here. We are actually the victors. And so as you read your word, as you do spiritual warfare, as you do those things, you do not have to lay down and be like, this is it. I'm being tormented. I ain't nothing I can do about it. Like those demons have to go. If if you're a believer. If you believe in Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior, you good. You repent. You get away from those behaviors. You stop allowing yourself to be exposed to those things so that you can see something, so God can infiltrate something better. Let me close these portals. Let me close these portals. Let me close this portal. I don't want nothing out here that's not of God. I want it to be of God. And so, that's like a little snippet. I mean, you could do a whole dissertation on it.
For sure.
But that's just a little situation. That's what I truly believe when it comes to deliverance in that case. But
no, I appreciate you doing that because I know that the deliverance is not necessarily an understanding that everybody has.
Yeah.
I just think about denominationally, like different people's thought processes on even the spirit.
Yeah.
And I think the element that I wanted you to touch on was agreement. Like there are some things that we may come into agreement by default.
Yeah.
But then there's things that we choose.
Yes.
And so I think there's the aspect of sin that stains a lot of that area of agreement. But most people stop at sin. Like we've talked about that before. Like most people just stop at the idea of sin, not understanding iniquity and transgressions. And so it's like, okay, these are actually behavior issues.
Yeah.
These have nothing to do with the demons now because you're choosing this.
You choosing.
And now these things are getting more of a foothold in your
Yeah.
life. And so it just becomes worse. Like that's that progression. Because now, okay, well, I'm dealing with iniquity. And then also like bloodline curses. It's like, okay, well, how'd that curse get in?
Yeah.
All right. This is the other thing. The curse is broken. But did you break the behavior of the curse? Because you may have broken the curse, but the behavior that curse left,
Still there.
you're still acting out in it.
Yeah.
So now there's things that are coming to attach itself to that.
Yeah.
So I do believe that paints that really, really good picture of what you were displaying earlier about the balance of having therapy and also understanding that God can work through therapy and also work through other elements of the spirit.
Yes.
So
Yeah. I mean, I'm a strong believer that we always lock God in.
Every
Like
time.
God can only do this. God
All
can
the
only
time.
bless like this. He can only heal like this. He can only speak like this. He can only say, like, what? God is everything. He can use whatever he wants. And so we have to open our minds to believe that he can actually be all the things that we don't even think he could be.
Yeah, that's good.
And allow him to be God of everything. And so I just really appreciate you coming on today talking about this. It's very important to me to normalize. Again, we just want to normalize that therapy
Absolutely.
is practical. Therapy is helpful, that it actually does work.
Yeah.
It actually is a tool that God gives us in order to facilitate and navigate this life, this crazy things that happen to us. He can't, evil is in the world. Evil things happen to us and it wasn't our fault. But we don't have to be victims to that forever. You don't have to live in a trauma forever thinking that you'll never get better or you'll never heal. Like, that's a lie of the enemy. And I just rebuke that now in Jesus' name. Like, you have the ability to overcome those things, but you got to do the work. You got to face it. And guess what? We have Jesus, who's our help, who comes beside us even in therapy. He can sit with you. God, come with me. I know today we're about to tackle something. I've said that before. That's been a prayer for me. God, I know we're about to tackle something real hard today.
Yeah.
I need you to be with me. And he comes. He comforts me while I'm explaining something very detrimental, very deep, very painful. And he's there to comfort me. And so that's where the scripture comes alive.
Yeah.
But you got to be willing. Just be willing. Just truly, like, maybe you don't know, what to do or where to go. Again, like, I have this platform, but it's also an opportunity for you to reach out to me. So if you are interested in therapy, but you don't know how to do it, where to go, what to look for, let me be a resource.
Yeah.
Let me help you out. So I'm just an advocate. I'm excited. and I just want everybody to do their work. So thank you for being on here.
Absolutely.
I love you down.
I love you too.
Thank y'all for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
All right, y'all. Peace.